What makes a man a man? Is it his money, toughness, or status?
Life lessons of legacy, where real men have real conversation. I'm Anthony
And
Washington.
I'm Titus Garnett, and we're here to dive deep into the struggles, victories, and lessons that shape us as men, from mental health and fatherhood to faith, identity, and purpose, breaking the silence and starting the conversations that matter.
We have over 12 years of professional experience and over 140 years of combined life experience as fathers, sons, brothers, husbands, friends, educators. We are you. We know that healing starts with honest dialogue. So let's get real. Let's get ready. Let's grow together. This is Mended Men's Conversation. Let's dive in.
We're here to just have sometimes general but important discussions of men to men regarding men and anything that affects men. Today, our topic we're going to start on is manhood and identity, defining who you are. What makes a man a man? Is it his money, toughness, or status? Today, we're breaking down the real definition of manhood and identity. All right, but as you kind of know, when we start getting into a discussion, some of the things we talk about and some of our definitions or references to the subject matter is also based on a great deal of our life experiences. Together, we have over 140 years of life experience in this world, in this country, in our environment, and our relationships to other men. Anthony, you want to lead into something on this subject matter today?
Yeah, it's like kind of what we were talk. I feel like we've been talking about for a while. What makes a man a man, and by what society says, what makes a man, power, money, dominance versus character, leadership, and faith. And what we're gonna do today, we're gonna break that down. We're gonna talk about, like you said earlier, our personal experience versus what society how society defines what is a man. My opinion, is that what defines a man. I don't believe money defines a man, because you can still have money and still be a man, and power doesn't, because you really don't control nothing. That even goes with dominance. That's a lot of work when you just feel like you want to dominate over people just to feel like you're a man. In my lifestyle, that doesn't really, my thinking, that doesn't calculate as what a true man is. Character, leadership, and faith. Friendship, for instance. A true marker of friendship is somebody that really cares. That's going to be there for you when you need it. And first of all, can be honest with you. I think that goes a long ways. You don't want somebody to tell you something just because that's what you want to hear. I need somebody to tell me something that is true. And sometimes it doesn't feel good. It might hurt, you know. But that's what I mean. That's what I need. That's my definition of a true friend, true man that can be honest. Because in today's society, honesty feels like it's short lived.
I'm a follow up on that. There was something else I wanted to get into regarding this subject matter, but right now, what you said about honesty, I find there's a lack of respect in society today for the word honor. There was a time when we was growing up. They used to, when they talk about a man, they talked about an honorable man. And nowadays, honor just seems like that's just something from the movies or whatever. It doesn't have any strength to it. But honor brings about a certain amount of respectability within yourself. And a lot of people outside you may not understand it or agree with it or go with it, but that's something you have to have inside. And I look at honor stronger than I look at pride. Now it looks in what context you put pride in, because pride will get your butt kicked if it's coming out at the wrong time. But if you proud of your accomplishments or the end result of what you do, that's different than just basic pride in itself. Pride basically in itself is more of an emotion than a truism that's in you, that you have, and you throw that word out anytime you feel like you're feeling a little bit insecurity or I got a lot of pride in me. Yeah, right. And what's that based on? I
Right.
feel self-esteem is more important than pride. But let's not go into that too deeply right now. But one of the things I wanted to look at is respect, the effort you put in to doing things. I'm looking for the right word and it slipped my mind. Some of that 140 years that's kind of knocked me back a little bit. And I think I got 120 of those 140. But it's doing what you know needs to be done, no matter what someone else will say. You
Right.
got a child, and you may be with your partner. He say, "Oh man, you got a baby that's tight, that's tight. Wow, you know." And you go, "Yeah." He says, "Okay, let's go out tonight. Hey, let's hit the bars. Let's do this. Let's do that." You know. Well, I promised my kid I'll do something. Oh man, screw that. Your lady take care of the kids. Well, me and my lady split up. Well, then that's even more of a good reason for you not to be bothered with your children. Let her deal with it. All right. There's a responsibility that we have of being more than just a male. All right. Manhood comes with maturity. When they talk about dominance, power, money, those are the result of an effort. But it does, like you said, does not critically make you a man. We throw that word man sometimes around when we specifically are speaking of males. Because to me, a man and a male are two different things. You're male by birth, you're a man by experience, maturity, and growth.
Action.
Yeah, yeah, especially follow up action. And when you accomplish or get something done, you're not looking for to be hoisted up on a pedestal and have a military parade for you.
Right.
Okay,
It comes from here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mean to cut you off, but I got to get back to what you said the first time. That word respect. I got to have respect for myself first.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if I have respect for myself, then that's what I can show you.
Hmm.
I mean, it all starts with you.
Now, and you can see it. We can see it in each other by the way you carry yourself and mainly by your conversation. It goes back to first impression. You can have an impression, see this guy walking down the street all bold and bad and driving the big wheels. And I mean, you're like, wow, what a man. And that's your first impression or somebody else's first impression. But when you open your mouth, that either solidifies that impression or it changes it.
Yeah.
All right. And what's even worse is your follow up actions. If your actions doesn't match your or the way you even talk, your words, hey, it's all a clown show.
I would always say, is your conversation and your actions don't match, you're lying. Just simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I say that is that, not judging people, but this is from my own experience. Because I know when I was a lot younger, I ain't had no problem telling you a lie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I thought I was being slick. But my experience with telling lies never panned out for me. And I always would ask myself, why everything all messed up? I had it all figured out. But the simple truth is that it's just about being honest.
Yeah.
And I don't care how it might look, because if I'm doing all of this just to look a certain way, it's not going to work out.
No.
It has not worked out for me functioning in that way. So I don't have a problem being honest. I mean, and a lot of people might not like it. And I'm okay with that, because I realize today everybody has a choice. And whatever actions I do, I got to live with that.
Yeah, being honest may have a short term effect of pain, this, that, or whatever. But a lie stretches into a long term effect and can be way more painful once that lie comes to fruition. When people see that lie and then the effect of it could be worse than that lie you told.
That's true. Because the thing of it is, for me, for a lie, you know, I will forget the lie that I told the first time.
Oh yeah, you gotta keep it. You gotta keep it going. That lie has no ending.
Man,
Until the ends, until you get busted.
And I was telling myself, I said, damn, this is not working, man.
Mm-hmm.
I told him this and that, and then I say something different. He tell me, well, yesterday you said this. So
Right.
what is it? Hey, I'm sitting there
Right.
looking like a fool.
Yeah.
So I said, this is not working. This is not working
Right.
for me. I'm just gonna be honest. Because I found out my experience is that even when I'm honest and people don't like it, they respect it. Like
Right.
they feel like they can trust you. Trust
And
me.
that brings about trust to you. Because
Mm-hmm.
once you get caught in that lie, you're gonna lose
Ooh.
a certain amount of respect and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And depending upon how big it is and who you tell it to, you could lose a whole lot of respect and trust. It could be a bloody mess.
And just with this little conversation we had, we're not talking about money, power,
No,
and dominance.
no, 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 no,
Because
no.
money come and go.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
power, be honest with you, and this is just my opinion, nobody has power over you.
right.
People will tell you they will have power because they're in a position, but that does not mean you have power over me. You're just in a position of authority, but that's not, you don't have power over me. You
Mm-hmm.
you you're in control of something and you want to make sure that works. You have more knowledge about this than I, so you can help direct me. That's my
Mm-hmm.
thing. That's my take on, you don't control me. You know this subject a little better than me. You're going to teach me how to do this better.
Yeah,
That's my perception of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. False, is that false labels people put on you by your actions or false labels you throw out there on your own?
I
Okay, in
think
other
it's
words,
more, it's a little bit of both, but I think it's
mm-hmm.
more of the labels we put on ourselves.
Yeah, and we don't. One of the things we talked about in relation to the last thing subject matter too is failure. We're
Yeah,
afraid to fail. There's a saying out there that people say failure is not an option. That's BS.
right.
Failure is going to happen one way or another or another. Every situation you get into will not be a success. So you got to handle failure. That could be in your job, your relationship, your
Life period.
money, just life, period. That four-letter word, which we use
Mm-hmm.
a lot, LIFE. That failure is going to happen. And how you handle it is going to be how you deal with it. Now, you can have past mistakes, right? Or in other words, those mistakes could be past failures. You
Mm-hmm.
lost a job. Okay. Your relationship, you look at a bad relationship you've had in the past and you drag it on to future relationships. All right. As men, and a lot of times we're not actually seen in women at times, certain women at times, as failure as a weakness. Oh,
Yeah.
you lost a job. You just another weak Negro. You ain't this. You ain't that. All right. Wish I had me some. Everybody has a certain amount of failure. The thing is, failure is an option, but giving up is not an
It's not.
option.
Right. I look
You
at
know,
failure. Failure is like right and left hand.
yeah.
You should succeed, you fail. It's your right and left hand. You can't exist in this world without failure or succeed. And
Mm-hmm.
why I say that is because, both of them are needed, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. They're needed
Yeah.
because if I'm always succeeding, when I do fail, I won't know how to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
I won't know what to do with that. But failure to me is giving me an opportunity to re-examine the steps I took to do something, and see where I made my misstep,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I can correct that. So it's a learning experience because that's what life is about. It's a learning experience. I don't care how old we get, we always have an opportunity. Long as we're on this face of this earth, we can learn something.
Failure, you made a good point about failure and success. We're gonna fail, we're gonna succeed. And we talk about how it's difficult for people to handle failure. But on the opposite end, people may have a difficult time handling success
That's true.
because they have failed in the past or success. If you got insecurities and stuff like that, you say, is this really happening? Oh, I got that promotion, I hope I don't screw it up. Now what am I going to do? Or another way of not handling success properly, if you go out and you think, I got the world on a string, I'm a bad mother, All right, I got all this shit. I'm the dude. I'm the man. All right, for what? Because you found $1 on the ground? You got your 50 cents raise an hour? You take it, okay. I got that raise, great. Now what's next? Because there's always in life what's next. And you can't wallow in the success or failure, or when the next what next come along, you won't be ready for it or expecting it.
True. What you just said reminds me of back when we first started this conversation, this topic. And, again, that goes back to the labels we put on ourselves. I can succeed all the time, and then I started to develop this label that I can't make no mistakes. And if I fail at something, I can't do this. I get caught up in
Mm-hmm.
that false misconception in my head. And
Mm-hmm.
it goes for the same thing for the failures. I don't think I can do this. I have
Yeah.
never, I
Yeah.
have always
Yeah.
failed. So I say this a lot of times that I can beat myself up a lot better than you can. Why I say that is because I can get away from you. I
Mm-hmm.
can walk away from you. You can talk bad, nasty, all you want to me. I can walk away. I can actually remove myself from that space. But what I can't do is I can't get away from me.
Yeah.
And that's how those
Yeah.
false labels can start to create. Because then I start thinking that, this is who I am. No, that's not who I am. That's what I did. And there's a difference
Yeah.
there.
I used to, when I taught classes and this and that or whatever, one of the things I would tell them is to be patient with yourself.
Yes.
Nobody can stick a foot up your butt deeper than you can to yourself.
And
And
further
then it's
than you
and
can.
then it's hard to hop around on one leg. All right. So you debilitating yourself. All
Yeah.
right. So yeah, how you handle things. And going into the next one, it leads into the upbringing impact self identity. Well, that's heavy right there. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, your upbringing has a great deal to do with
Right?
your
It
identity.
does.
And as a man, you have to look at more than just your relationship with your sons. You also have to realize the relationship with your daughter because you're
Mm-hmm.
affecting the both of them's identity. A twin. You favor the one twin over the other twin. That other twin's gonna be mad. Or you have women that say, I gotta raise a son to be a man. Well, that's a discussion for another day, but I'm gonna make it short and sweet. You ain't a man.
So I'm going to cut in. I was watching this clip where his father took his son to baseball practice, and he
Mm-hmm.
was hitting. I think the father was pitching to him, and the ball hit him in the hands, and
Mm-hmm.
he dropped the bat, threw his hat off, and started howling and screaming and whatnot. The father was still on the mound. He let him holler for a minute. He said, "All right, go pick up your hat." The little boy went to pick up his hat, still crying. He said, "Pick up the bat, get back into position." And the little boy got back in position. He said, "All right, get your position, pitch the ball to him." He missed it. He said, "All right, come on, get ready, let's do it." And he pitched it to him a couple more times, and he started hitting. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and what the more of it is that, and it's not a knock against women, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just part of their nature of always coloring it and want to make sure they can take away the pain. But if a woman was there, the first thing she would have did is ran over there and cuddled that little boy. Let me see you where you got hurt and kissed his hand.
Yeah.
But the father,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Right.
but yeah,
Right.
and the father
Right.
didn't do that. He stayed on the
No,
mound and
he
continued
didn't.
to pitch. And the lesson he taught his son is that you're going to go through life experiencing pain. It's just that you don't stop doing what you need to do just because you're in pain. You continue to do what you got to do.
And the majority of those pain will be unexpected. It's not like you're gonna get up in the morning and say, "Okay, I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna drop a hammer on my toe," or "I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna get fired today," or this or that. It's unexpected, and how do you handle it? Do
Right.
you kick yourself in the butt, or do you rise above it and say, "Okay, you live with it for a minute, then you go, okay, that's enough of that. Now, what's next?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's always a what's next
It is.
when it comes. And how we were raised, you and I are from different situations. And the only reason I'm saying we're from different situations is because we're from different environments.
But our
All right?
situation was different.
It was different, but there was also similarities because we are male. All right, so we still have those similarities. And when I say we're males, that's where we grow up. But it's difficult for a 7-year-old boy whose father died now becomes the man of the house.
Oh yeah.
So what does he do? He quits school and he goes to work at the factory or continues or say, okay, I got to get a job somewhere or this or that. I mean, we're not going back to the 90s and even some to the 40s, okay?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't go back to that because the
Times
world
is changing.
changes. Yeah, times is different.
You
So,
know, I'm just I want to tell you. You made me think of this little story that about how we grew up. I was when I was working. I had this. She called herself she my supervisor. I was okay with that. It didn't make me no difference because I felt like I knew my job.
yeah,
Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you being my supervisor, only thing you can do is show me how to do something different.
yeah.
If I made a mistake, okay, I'll listen to you. Because I know I ain't
Mm-hmm.
perfect. And I feel like I'm open to learning new things. She told me something. I was supposed to call this vet, and because he didn't answer, so we did a wellness check on him. I did it, and the cops said they called me back the next day with the results. They did. I get to work. I get the message and whatnot. Everything worked out all fine. She comes in, and the first thing she comes through the door. She don't go to her office. She comes straight to my office. I shouldn't have let you go home yesterday. I should have told you to do this. And I'm saying to myself, you shouldn't have let me. I water off the back. I just let it flow over my head.
Right,
I said,
right,
okay, I got
right,
it.
right,
You know.
right.
So she get to her office. 10 minutes. I'm in there doing my notes and whatnot. 10 minutes later, she emailed me. I look at the email and it's about the same thing. So I'm saying like got a little frustrated. I'm gonna ignore it. Then she hit me up again. You know what I'm saying? What's wrong with this lady? 5 minutes later, she comes to my office and just ring in on me. And
Yeah,
I'm sitting down at the desk and she's standing at my door. And now I'm fuming.
yeah.
I'm about ready to jump up and just like grab this woman in the collar. But she's a lot
Right.
older than me.
Uh-huh.
So my mind told me, said, stand up. And then I said, something told me, said, no, because she's white. Don't stand up.
Yeah.
And I didn't stand up. I took a deep breath. I said, you know something? One of the things my mother and father taught me is to always respect my elders. I said, but what you're doing right now, you're going to make me lose that. I said, because you think I'm an invalid. I heard what you said the first time, and you done came back to me 3 times telling me the same thing. Like I'm not incompetent enough to hear what you got to say. I said, but you didn't give me an opportunity to even give you the information so you know the job was done. I said, but don't ever come to me like that. No more. I'm not no kid. I'm a
Yeah.
grown man. And as of this day, don't you ever disrespect me like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I was calm, but I guess you could see the steam coming from my head. But my supervisor, he heard it because, I didn't talk soft to her. I was loud. He walked past the office. He didn't stop to see what's going on. He walked fast past my office.
Mm-hmm.
And she walked away. So there was this other guy, this black guy working in the office. He was a social worker too. So she went over there and talked to him. She said, I don't know what's wrong with Anthony, but he just went off on me. I had to just get up, go outside, and go take me some fresh air, give me some fresh air. But when I came back, I felt a lot better.
Yeah.
I dealt with her. I
Yeah.
gave her all the information she needed. But I realized from that point is that, you can't allow people to push your buttons. And people will do it if you will let them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but that just reminded me of that just took me back when how I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing my mom and pop told me, you respect your elders. If they disrespect you, you don't have to deal with them in the street. You come tell me. I'll deal with
Mm-hmm.
them, not you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that resonated with me. That stayed with me. Granted, I did have a mouth on me when I was a kid. Sometimes I was just like, I handle this.
I don't see that as I speak sarcastically. I don't see that. And it is. But see, that also is an issue when you are told when you're young to respect your elders and the old saying, children should be seen, not heard.
Mm-hmm.
And When do you get to that point? Do you do stand up for yourself? Now, you can stand up for yourself with your peers, but when do you stand up for yourself with an adult? And we're looking at a young man here. I found that if someone's lying on you, I don't accept the lie. And they say, you're a kid. You don't know what you're doing. I will not accept the lie. I will not accept that I'm a kid and I don't know what I said or doing. Now, to just the idea of knowing when I know I'm right, I'm not lying to myself that I'm right.
Right.
But at the same concept, you got to accept when you're wrong.
Yeah, you do.
You got to accept that when you're wrong or that. How you, as black men, we are looked upon visually at times as a threat, especially when we're dealing with white women or some women in particular, or like and you're sitting at your desk and this woman comes over there and she wants to berate you. If you had stood up, ran around the other side of your desk and sat down on your desk and say she was sitting in a chair, I'd have scared the living bejesus out of her.
Yeah. And that's the thought that went through my head. Don't get up.
Mm-hmm.
Because my point will be lost. And I needed to make my point with her.
Mm-hmm. But if it was a guy, when I used to be a sales rep many moons ago, customers, when you go into their office, when you sit down in that chair was sitting low. Psychologically, it has an effect that they're looking down on you. Not really. That was the game they played.
I'm laughing is because that's part of the mind game that you have.
Right, right. So what I would do is if I had to go in there and discuss something, an issue with this person about, paying your bill or this or that, or how come you told me one thing and did another, and they would say, come on, Titus, sit down. I wouldn't sit down. I would stay standing, so I'm looking down on them. And then to make it even worse, I would move around. I never stayed in one position and I had their eyes following me back and forth. And then I would talk and wouldn't look at them until I wanted to make a point. And then that's the old saying, I sell it with a look. Then I give them that look. But my voice was never threatening. It was firm and sure of what I'm doing. So at times we have to play these, I hate to say games, but when you want to get your point across, you got to know what you're doing. And sometimes you got to play those little games. It's like when people get mad at you, like you arguing with somebody, and it's like I had a brother. I just wouldn't argue with him because to him, the loudest wins. And if you're the loudest, that means you win, that means you're right. But that's not true. So when he finished yelling, I would say in a calm voice, you're wrong. And this is why. I wasn't going to compete him on loudness. I would compete with him on logic.
Yeah.
And correctness.
When you say that, I'm in a conversation, and you know how sometimes people just want to overtalk you, and every time you get ready they stop, and you get a chance to speak, they jump in again and give you. So a little technique I learned is that I would just sit back and say, okay, just let me know when you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that can be so irritating to people because it's like I'm gonna get my point across. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna exercise some patience because it's something that you have on your mind that you want to get off to me, and I'm gonna allow you to get it off.
Right.
And I'll wait.
Right.
And then when they take a break, I say, "Are you done?" What you mean am I done? I said, "Are you done speaking?" See, because if we having this conversation, it only can go one way. I got you talk, I listen, I talk, you listen. I said, but we talk at the same time. Who listening? So I'm asking you, are you done? So I can speak. And they would get so frustrated. I'm done. I ain't got nothing to say, and walk away.
It's all about control.
Yeah, it is.
But the first control you have to have is of yourself. And if someone else wants to control the situation, that does not mean they control right, wrong, you, or whatever. They don't control it. And when you just keep bringing back up your point and you solid about it, and they try to walk out, and you say, well, okay, you can keep walking when you're wrong. And so you just, and they try to have the last word. Sometimes people get into it with you, not from the point of right or wrong. It's the point of bragging to somebody else how they control the situation.
You know that first word we talked about when you say what defines what society
Mm-hmm.
domination.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because see, everything we're talking about it relates to pretty much all the subject matter that we're covering today. And which brings us to the next one, the identity crisis in men. Struggles with self-worth, career failures, or emotional detachment. That's a real kick in the butt right there. We came back from the previous one that says upbringing impact on self-identity. That has a great deal of impact on your struggles with your own self-worth, how you're raised. All right, are you constantly put down? And even at sometimes, what's your order in the family dynamic amongst your peers? What's your order there? We were raised in a time, and I'm sure at certain times it's still the same, that the oldest was considered always the next in line because they was older, they had more experience, more knowledge, and they smarter than you. That's not necessarily so.
You just the oldest.
All
That's all.
right, you just the oldest. That's it. Or the youngest one, you treat like a baby. Oh, they're so sweet, and you ending up spoiling them. All right. So then they come out and thinking, I got to have my way. Parents have to be really aware how they deal with the dynamics of children
If they got
in
more
the
than one.
family. Yeah, if you got more than one. But sometimes when we're talking about single child, that's a discussion for another day. But as men, I'm not saying women don't do it either, but as men, we seem to have to be more careful in life about things. All right. Like I have found through experience, women could talk back more in an employment situation than a man can.
Yeah.
All right, because we're looked upon as threatening more so, even with our body
Hostile.
physique. Yeah, hostile with our body physique.
Tone of
The
voice.
volume and tone, what is said, if you're
Damn.
cussing, because you can even say, personally, I don't give a damn about that, and they're like, oh, why are you cussing at me?
So
But a
many
woman
ways
could,
you kind of like
there's so many ways they
shut
could
it
take
down.
it. Right. So we have to be aware of how we approach who we dealing with more so. So we should need to be aware of that same concept in our children. Are we spoiling that girl more than we need to? Are we giving that boy more attention than the other boys in the family or even than the sisters in the family? Now, there's always a certain amount of spoiling, but sometimes kids will say, well, you must love them more than you love me. Well, no. We have to be aware of those things because we have a certain dominant structure about us in the family, depending upon your family. My mother she was something else. She did all the butt kicking, all the hell raising, the angry, all this and that in the family. But it was like when my father spoke, he didn't use a lot of words. He just said, my mother be at the table yelling, and this boy did this and he did that. And, blah, 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 blah. And my father would go, you knew better, didn't you? Did you do this? And we'd be like,
Real simple and smooth.
I got way more spankings from my mother than my father. I can't
Same here.
think of only one time my father ever raised his hand on me. I can only think of it one time.
Man, you know
And
something. I can think back, when we was kids, and you know the saying they used to say, you better be home in the house before the street lights come on.
right,
You
right,
know,
right, right, right. Yeah.
we'd be hanging out over there in the baseball field and whatnot. My father would come over there, but he wouldn't come all the way down there. He would be like maybe in left field at the end of the projects, and all he would do
Mm-hmm.
is just step out on the side of the building just enough so you could see him.
Right,
And
right.
man, when you caught a glimpse of him, it was like,
That's
hey,
all it
yo,
took.
yeah, I gotta go. I ain't gonna run towards him. I'm gonna go the long way and beat him home because I know
Right.
it's time to go home. And he
Yeah.
ain't say much. That's
Yeah.
it.
Now, certain men say things certain way. You get that father who's out there on the baseball field in the stands yelling and screaming and oh, come on, this and that or whatever. But I was with my son. I was always laid back and cool. I just watched. And then after the game or the event or whatever, I say, come on, come here, let me holler at you. All right. And just say, okay, you need to work on this, that, or whatever. I was never one to draw the attention to myself to
Right.
take it away from the children out there doing whatever they're doing. But we talk about career failures. We mentioned failures before, but I don't know anyone, including myself, unless it's you, that has never been fired from a job in their life.
It ain't me. I don't know, maybe somebody behind, but damn sure ain't me.
Maybe somebody out there somewhere in the world, I mean, at any time in their life. And sometimes I was working with my father, and he'd just say, put that down and go home. Just go home. To me, that was like being fired, on a job, when we were young. Go on in the house. Get away from me. You don't know what you're doing. All right. That, to me, kind of set you up for criticism on the job. You learn how to take it. It didn't mean the end of the world
Mm-mm.
because your father come in the next day, he didn't even bring it up. Maybe an hour later, he didn't bring it up. It didn't matter. It was all the same. But there will be, and a career failure, we have to put it in a proper context. A career failure could be somebody else getting that promotion you didn't get. So you figure it's a failure. I had a friend of mine who worked for the IRS, and no, he worked for an accounting firm. We was growing up, and all this guy did was just brag about, yeah, I work for the largest accounting firm in the country. I'm this and that and blah blah blah, and everybody knows. And this promotion is coming up, and at this time, black folks weren't getting that type of press. And they were saying, yeah, this division manager's job. Everybody's come already congratulating me, and to put the icing on the cake, when the president of the company, he always has this trip he goes on up in Canada, and he always brings people with him who is ready to take that next level. And I've been invited to go on that trip. All right. So when he came back, he said, "Yeah, I was on." This guy ever did was brag. Then come to find out, not only he didn't get the promotion, they gave it to a woman. This guy was crushed.
I know he
He
was.
was crushed. He couldn't show his face. Not only he had a hard time going to work. His internal failure caused him to quit that job. He couldn't handle it. He quit the job and went to work for the IRS or something like that. I kind of figured he wanted to get back at them one way or the other, but he could not handle that in a career failure.
It sounds like that word you talked about in the beginning, pride.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. His pride, and we used to say to him, "Man, don't let that get you down. You sharp, you smart." There was things that I mean, he said some things to us that if we could have handled it, man, we'd be billionaires today. One time he says, "You know what? We ought to get all the money we got together and buy gold." We said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, man, because gold is only $35 an ounce now, and it's gonna go up." Man, we were only like 20 years old at the time, in 20, and we said, "Well, all the money we got couldn't get us a Snickers bar. What are you talking about?" We sitting there playing cards and splitting a 6 pack of beer. We had to put money together to get that. So where we gonna get $35 to buy even 1 ounce of gold? We just didn't have it. But he was sharp. But he was an only child. He couldn't take failure. And it really worked on him, especially in his career. And when we get emotional detached, we all of a sudden we're in our own little world again. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to be around nobody. We cannot afford that as men. There are times we need to
Those are
get
the
away.
time when we need to be around people, because they will
Mm-hmm.
help us look at those labels that we put on ourselves, and listen, talk about my failures. I found out, even though when I first realized it, I didn't want to accept it, but when I first started accepting the fact that when I messed up and I was able to talk about those things, I was able to let it
Hmm.
go and I was able to move
Yeah.
forward. I wasn't
Yeah.
stuck anymore. And it didn't hit me right away, but later on in life I realized that, I can't go nowhere if I'm still holding on to the past. Those
Right.
misconceptions that I have of myself and those
Yeah.
expectations that I have that, I didn't stand up to. You know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
all about life. That's life.
It's it's that four-letter word again. It keeps popping up,
Yeah.
and until we accept it and deal with it, it's going to be issues. The next is confidence in who you are, walking in God's purpose, not in the world's expectations. Well,
That's heavy.
that is heavy because it goes to the internal belief of what you have.
Right here.
People who don't, they may want to say, well, what is God's expectation of me? Understand who you are, all right? And not the lie you tell yourself sometimes when people say, this is who I am, rather than the truth is, in most cases, this is who you want to be, rather than who you are. The life experiences, you make choices of who you want to be. If you're going to be mean, lie to yourself, this, that, be honorable, that's who you are because you created yourself that way. You went down that path. And by your trust in God, your trust in a higher power, your trust in something that is bigger than you is a positive, not a negative. So don't put that negative off on God. Well, this is the way God made me. No, you've had experiences in your life that made you that way, but as you mature and grew older, you have a choice. You have a
Yeah.
choice to get out of it,
Yeah.
you know?
That's the blessing and all that. We always have a choice. I don't have to like it, but I have to
Right.
remember I always got a choice.
Yeah. And the more you say, well, this is what was done to me, this, that, or whatever, it's like this. And growing up in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, you heard this a lot. Yeah, man, the white man did this, the white man did that to me, and this is why because of slavery and this, that, whatever, and this and that. And I say, okay, all that is true. Now, if we know that, what's next?
What do I do today? What I do right now?
What do I do now? What's
Am I
next? Do I
gonna?
keep falling back on that every time I fail?
I'm gonna
All
buy the
right?
lie because it's comfortable.
Right.
It's
Right.
to buy the lie.
Yeah.
Grant, I'm not going to take the responsibility away from them of what happened and their
Hmm.
mentality, but
Yeah.
I don't have to live like that today.
No, because you're aware of what is represented. You're
Right.
aware of it when you go into that situation, and you don't have to accept it. But what's next? We can't constantly fall back on that. In other words, you take no fault in your own failure sometimes. It's your fault. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't live in that fault and beat yourself with a cat of nine tails, all right? And say, I must sacrifice myself. No, you don't. You don't sacrifice yourself for God. God don't need your sacrifice. God is there to lift you up.
He's not
He's
asking
not there.
to
Yeah,
sacrifice.
right. He's not asking you to live in your own burden. Lift you up to keep going,
Mm-hmm.
and not in the world's expectations. The world's expectations is who? The world's expectation is your peers, your family, your environment, your government, your whatever.
Community, all of that.
Yeah. But when you say the world's expectation, it makes it so general, you don't know where to pinpoint it. But you say, this is what I got to do. Society says that black men are going to leave. If anybody's going to leave their family, black men are going to do it. Black men ain't no good. You know how y'all are. That's not true. And I don't accept it. And I don't accept it from women, black women, whatever, white women, don't matter to me. I don't care if you're from Mars. Well, there's probably no women on Mars because men are from Mars. I don't care if you're from Venus. All right? I'm not going to accept it. All right? So that's my self worth and my relationship with God and myself to help me stay above the fray.
Yeah.
To,
I got I'm just calling him a minister, he helped me see a lot of things. He helped me realized a lot of things about me that, that I thought about how I felt. But what he actually did explain to me is that, you can have the knowledge and you can know a lot of things, but if you're not putting it into action and actually living it, it's really a waste of time.
Yeah.
You can know everything
Yeah.
about the world, but if you're not
Yeah.
having experience with that, then it's waste. It's useful.
Faith without works.
Is I think it's seven. It's truth, justice. I can't remember. Truth, justice, harmony, propriety, reciprocity, righteousness. Those things that we would always say, and say just try, not trying, but living up to those words, implementing that in your life. It helps you feel better about who you are.
Yeah.
Other people might see it and say, "Man, that's a bunch of crap." But everybody's entitled to their own opinion. The only person's opinion really matters about you is you. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm open to take in criticism, however you want to call it, but it's just another man's opinion.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and you're right about that. And we've only got a couple of minutes left. And last,
and this time flies by so fast.
it does. One of the things I want to say real quick, we're talking about brotherhood, accountability, and the roles of mentors and strong friendships in shaping identity. I hope we can kind of get into this next week, but the one point I want to make with that is men, choose well.
Right.
Choose well who you choose as for mentorship and for brotherhood and friendships. Now, men are easy to say, oh, I know him. That's my buddy. That's my friend. And I just met you last night. But choose well who you count as a friend that you can trust and be with and honor with. You can talk. I'm not saying don't talk to the other black. I'm just saying choose well.
I agree with you on that. And take it one step further. Don't be in no rush. Take your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
As we said
Yeah.
earlier in this my actions and my conversation must coincide.
Right.
That's what I say. That's what say I say the word judge, but I got it. That's how I judge a person.
Yeah.
I get to know if what you're saying out your mouth and your action.
Yeah.
I can believe you because I like what you're doing. Because whatever you're saying, you're doing it. And I'm comfortable with that. Because
Yeah.
it's something something I live by myself.
Well, gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining us for Mended Men. I'm Titus Garnett.
And I'm Anthony Washington.
So we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, before you go, I got one more thing for you. If today's conversation spoke to you, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready to take that next step in your personal healing and growth, connect with us. We're here to help. You can find us at www.garnettcounseling.com. Your story matters. Your healing matters. And we'll be honored to be part of your journey. Let's keep the conversation going.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Mended Men Conversations. If something we shared resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Remember, healing is a journey and you don't have to walk it alone. Stay connected with us. Subscribe to the podcast and join the conversation online. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep building your legacy.